Psychological projection happens when our shadows project onto others. What are your shadows? Your shadows are your baggage, your not so great qualities, your anger, your resentment, your jealousy, your comparison mode, your rescuing tendencies, your bitterness, your shame, your fear, and so forth. It can be a defense mechanism and a form of avoidance that prevents you from dealing with your own shadows. It can be conscious or unconscious and subconscious. When we project, it keeps us from growing because projection always finds a way to shift blame, cast flaws, and put our feelings on someone else rather than facing it head on and taking radical responsibility. Projection involves attributing your own feelings, desires, or qualities to another person, another group, experience, or object. It's when we take or confuse what's happening on the inside and project it to the outside. So let's say, for example, your boss has been breathing down your neck and you just feel really unseen and angry about it. Then you come home and you snap at your kid as soon as they ask you a question. Then your kid also then feels unseen and probably angry because you just snapped at them. And now everybody is feeling unseen and angry. And we're just projecting and projecting and projecting onto each other. Think about how many of us have experienced this. And then we also then do that to our partners. We do that to our family members and so forth. It also shows up when we identify unwanted emotions or traits we don't like about ourselves and project it onto someone else. Example 1, you're a people pleaser, yet you constantly find yourself annoyed and judgmental towards a friend whenever they can't say no to others. All you're actually seeing is the person you don't want to see in yourself. When you find yourself so irritated with someone, when you find yourself so judgmental towards someone, when you find that you're so irked by someone's behavior, you got to ask yourself, are they just holding up a mirror for me? And is that why I hate it so much? It makes me cringe inside because I actually see myself. Example number 2. You woke up to a text from your mother-in-law and you feel annoyed and irritated. You start driving to work and everyone is annoying. People are driving too slow. The barista at the coffee shop isn't cheerful. The parking attendant has a speakerphone on full blast when you pull up to the garage. And you're just like, seriously, it's 8 a.m, my eardrums. You see annoying and irritating people everywhere, but really all you're seeing is yourself. We project when we don't want to face difficult feelings or emotions. For example, you get annoyed at your partner for expressing their sadness and needs for support, but actually what you're projecting is your own sense of shame and weakness for feeling weak feelings and needing love. We also project when we are insecure or uncomfortable with ourselves. For example, you see a friend going out, spending money, traveling, living their best life. They're actually living the total opposite of what you've been taught. So it actually makes you feel insecure, uncomfortable, and judgmental. Why is she always out? She doesn't seem responsible with her time and money. By the way, people probably think that about you. It's all right. They're just projecting. There are many, many, many ways that we project. These are 5 different ways of projecting that I want us to think about. Negative projection. That was the example of you getting a phone call from your mother-in-law and being annoyed, and then all of a sudden that's all you see, right? Projecting negative qualities, only seeing the bad. But this is also not even just your own feelings that you're projecting out into the world, but if you are seeing everything through the lens, okay, kind of like back to that skeptical lens, right? If you were raised under a skeptical lens, right, that's how you may see everything, right? Or maybe just in general, your programming tends to lean towards only seeing the negative qualities in people. Or maybe it's just one particular person that for some reason you've started to feel a lot of disdain, and now you just constantly only see their negative qualities. This happens in relationships all the time. You get triggered, you get annoyed, and now all you see is how annoying they are. This is what I would categorize as negative projection, right? Projecting negative qualities, only seeing the bad. Now, let's go to the flip side of this, positive projection. Projecting positive qualities, only seeing the good, putting them on a pedestal. Oh my God, they're so pretty. Oh my God, they're so cool. Oh my God, because why? Because maybe they represent the person that you wish you were, or think you wish you were, or think is the person that your mom wished you were. And so all you project are the positive qualities. All you see are the good things. So much so to the point that you deny that you're actually in a dysfunctional relationship, that you actually deny that this person doesn't actually fully show up authentically, because all you see is the shiny aesthetic, because all you see is what you want to see. The good, the positive, the shiny. Complementary projection with an E. This is when we assume other people share your beliefs, understandings, opinions, and priorities. Assuming that other people share your beliefs because they're the same race as you, because they're the same culture as you, because they went to the same school as you. Like, oh, you get it, you're Asian. Oh, you get it, you're a guy. Like, oh, you get it, marketing stuff. It's like, what? And we also do that to others as well. So we want to be mindful of that and not assume just because. Complementary projection with an I. This is when we assume others have the same skills and level of abilities as you. The problem with this is that there is a risk of over or underestimating what others can do. I don't get it. Why can't you do it? It's not that hard. They can do it. Why can't you? You're in the same department. You have felt this, you have received this, and you've definitely also served this. I am sure of this. And then last but not least, delusional and paranoia projection, irrationally believing in the projection and its consequences. This is when we spiral. This is when we go into the story. We're projecting and we believe it. We make the other person a persecutor. We go into the triangle. We're like afraid of what's going to happen. We do this to our partners. We do this with our bosses. This is the you're out to get me projection. The following are going to be all examples of different kinds of projection so that we can really deepen our understanding of how it shows up more and more and more. So let's say that you feel guilty for flirting with a coworker or a friend or an ex, and then you get paranoid or accuse your partner for doing the same thing. You feel insecure about your own sexuality, so you mock things for being too feminine, too masculine. You don't like someone for some reason from the moment you meet them. And then over time, you believe that they don't like you too. You criticize or judge someone for doing the same things you also do. You are insecure about your appearance and judge others for dressing a certain way, having certain things, or showing up in a particular way. You think someone's pretty, so you automatically think they're the coolest person in the room. And you don't even notice their questionable behaviors because you want their approval, you want to be associated with them, or you want to be like them. You put someone on a pedestal because of their job title, hoping for the same. You stay in a dysfunctional relationship with someone because you think they have qualities you don't have, when actually it's a reflection of your own potential. Let's talk about why it is that we project in the first place. We project ultimately to protect ourselves from conflict, from uncomfortable feelings, from doing the hard work of facing our own shadows. We don't want to admit fault. When we feel butthurt, we don't want to take our R. At the end of the day, it's a protective mechanism. It's because of our egos, and we are just trying to avoid discomfort. The ego is afraid to lose. It's afraid to be wrong. It's afraid to be bad or ultimately unlovable. We just want to be liked, loved, and accepted. And we're ultimately afraid of losing this. And so with that said, we're always projecting, whether we realize it or not. This is why we do the work, so that we can constantly zoom out, stay self-aware, and know our stories. Not only is it important for us to gut check ourselves and go, oh, am I projecting right now? Am I projecting right now? Another thing that might happen is we start getting on a spiritual high horse when we start doing the work as well. And then we start thinking that everyone else is projecting. And then what ends up happening is that you start displacing your RR in that way as well. And then you start saying that it's your intuition when it's actually your projection that they're projecting. As we do the work, it is very common to also accuse others of projection because you are so aware. So we have to really be mindful of our spiritual egos. Just because we now know about projection, it's also really easy to start blaming others for projection as well. Rather than being quick to blame others for projecting and labeling it as your intuition, for example, just focus on yourself. Focus on your own work around projecting onto others. And that's it. Check in with yourself before accusing others of projection, and check in with your guides, your teachers, your trusted mentors if you're not sure if it's your intuition or projection. Discernment is something that will take time, practice, and experience, y'all. Transference happens when we redirect or literally transfer emotions or feelings from childhood about one person, i.e. your mom, to another person. It is a complex interplay of emotions, memories, and subconscious actions. With transference, feelings such as anger, hostility, love, adoration, etc., can be attached to one another. This often happens without you even realizing it, and it's totally normal for it to occur in all relationships, all roles, and all responsibilities. It can actually be harmful or helpful to a situation, depending on how it's used. In a best case scenario, experiencing transference is an opportunity to unpack and heal major wounds that can change the trajectory of your life. Transference can help us gain insight into our thought patterns, which lead to feeling patterns, which lead to behavioral patterns, if we can identify it when it is happening and take action immediately. With all types of transference, there is a well of history, wounds, memories, desires, needs, feelings, and emotions that can be tended to. Think of it as a gift. I want to start by talking about a few different types of transference that can happen, just like we talked about different types of projection that can happen. Let's talk about positive transference. Positive transference is when enjoyable aspects of past relationships are projected onto someone. And this can actually be very beneficial to a therapeutic process or just a relationship in general. For example, let's say you have an enjoyable aspect of a past relationship. Let's say that you have fond memories of your mom taking you to the beach and buying you a coconut. And you remember having your first coconut with your mom, and it was so great and it was so beautiful and it was so lovely and delicious. And you'll never forget how yummy and refreshing that was. And then you come to Tulum with me, and we're spending an afternoon on the beach just hanging out. And then we also see someone walk by with a coconut, and we go and have a mommy-daughter moment. where we go and get a refreshing coconut together, and you just feel that sense of warmth and love and remember what it's like. You have that moment of transference of what it's like to feel loved and supported and to create a fond memory with someone. And that can be very beneficial to your therapeutic process because that can help you deepen your trust and your bond with me and help you really feel like you're reinforcing a memory that helps you feel safe and supported, for example. You can also experience this with partners, friends, and so forth. Negative type of transference is when negative or hostile feelings are projected onto someone from a previous relationship. This is what often leads to dumpster fires at work, coworkers, relationships, and so forth. But it can also open up important conversations that lead to huge breakthroughs around emotional responses. Let's say I give you a mirror, and in that moment, you immediately go into that negative or hostile feeling of being in trouble, of now you're going to be punished. Now I'm going to take something away from you, etc., because that's what would happen growing up at home. As soon as maybe your mom called you in or called you out or something, you immediately associate that with like how you feel about your mom, right? And let's say the way that you feel about your mom, the way that you think about your mom is my mom never supports me. My mom is out to get me. I'm not her favorite. She likes my brother more than me. She likes my sister more than me. She always picks on me. So maybe the minute that I hold a mirror up to you, you go into that same place. She only picks on me. She's playing favorites, et cetera, et cetera. And then you go wild on that transference and then can turn into a dumpster fire. But this is a wonderful opportunity for you to do the work because it can open up important conversations. The vulnerable thing to do would be to take a step back and say, hey, when you held up that mirror for me, my initial reaction was that you're mad at me, you don't like me, that you're singling me out, that you're picking on me, that you're trying to take advantage of me. I don't know, whatever that is. And I would really like to unpack this further with you. Can I unpack this further with you? Because I clearly have some serious wounds around this. Because if I really, really zoom out, yes, you may have been upset with me, but I totally took that personally and I created a whole story around it. And I just want to like try to unpack like what might really be going on there. Can you help me out with that? I'm just giving you an example of like how you can approach that, right? Like, can you help me out with this? Because clearly like I'm having some transference here and I'm telling myself that you're picking on me. Right? I'm telling myself that you don't respect me. I'm telling myself that you don't like me. I'm telling myself that like that you don't take me seriously or whatever that is. Right? And so always know that when you have these moments, it's really an opportunity for you to dig deeper and for you to really, really address some untended wounds, paternal and maternal. This is when you see a therapist, manager, teacher, or authority figure as someone who is powerful, wise, or protecting. It can also trigger anger and agitation. So either way, father figure transference, which by the way, typically any kind of parental figure transference is going to be positive or negative because that's where a lot of your childhood memories stem from. And then same thing, seeing a therapist, manager, teacher, or authority figure as someone who is nurturing, kind, or loving, but that can also generate trust or trigger trust issues. Sibling transference. When sibling dynamics occur because you project thoughts and feelings towards someone that reflect a sibling relationship. This can often occur when parental relationships were lacking during childhood. Part of the sibling dynamic is kind of like your main way of processing relationships in the world because there's a bit lacking in the experience with your parental relationships. So you may move through the world through the lens of sibling transference more often than you may realize because it's a way that you make sense of things. That's definitely one way to look at it. And then obviously there's just the sibling transference in general that can happen, especially if you have a lot of sibling baggage, depending on if you were having to be like the golden oldest child or the middle child that felt forgotten or like the youngest child that felt like they couldn't ever have like agency, right? There's all that kind of stuff that can show up. Let's move on. Non-familial. This is when we idealize someone and those stereotypes or biases influence our views. Seeing a doctor as the ultimate healer, giving up your agency, giving up your authority to someone in a white coat, right? When you have white coat syndrome, right? And they say that your heart rate starts to go up as soon as you're about to go into a doctor's office because you start to feel that anxiety of that authority and medicine and all that stuff, that kind of thing happens. Another example, seeing a celebrity as untouchable, a therapist as the wisest, a priest as the most holy. And we see this all the time. This is where the pedestal and the transference, they overlap quite a bit. Last but not least, erotic transference. Okay, we got to talk about it because it happens. All right. It is when feelings or love or fantasies of sexual, sensual nature are experienced. Working through these feelings can actually help you understand and process your relationship with love, desire, needs, sexuality, etc. So let's talk about the difference between projection and transference, because they're very similar and there's a lot of overlap. And you might be wondering, how do I know when something is projection and how do I know when something is transference? I'm going to break this down for you in a very, very simplified way on purpose. While there is some overlap, to keep it simple, I want you to think of it like this. Projection is a little more straightforward. It happens when a person projects their own feelings, qualities, thoughts, or behaviors onto another person. So it's just one-to-one. It doesn't involve a third person from the past. So for example, your manager was a to you. You feel like you come home and then you're a to your husband. That's projection because you feel bad and now you project those feelings. Very straightforward. Your own feelings onto another person. Or for example, you are insecure about the way that you look. You walk into a room and you automatically think that someone is judging you and that someone is talking about you and what you wore to the party. But that's just your thoughts. You are projecting what you're thinking when the other person didn't think that at all. Transference, meanwhile, takes three people: the person from a previous experience, yourself, and then another person. What happened in your childhood with your mama, you, and then me, for example. Mom always told you that you had to figure it out yourself. You feel like you have to figure it out yourself, even though you're in here to get help. And then you have transference with me that you can't message me because I'm going to be disappointed, sad, upset, whatever, that you are asking me for help, even though that is literally why you're in here. It happens. That's how transference works. Let's talk about how to prevent projection and transference. First things first, your very, very first, how to prevent projection and transference is by one, doing the work. What is doing the work? Doing the work is every day working on building self-awareness. How do we build self-awareness? Building self-awareness for me includes really paying attention to the things that I say to myself. Really paying attention to the thoughts that I have, the things that I think about myself, the things that I think about other people, and really noticing how I think about things, how I look at things. To me, building self-awareness is also really noticing how I feel, noticing if I feel calm, noticing if I feel anxious, noticing if I feel closed or open, noticing if I feel tired, noticing my energy levels. Building self-awareness also means to me noticing my patterns, the things that I repeat. What are the things that I say all the time? What are the things that I do all the time? What are the things that I avoid all the time? What are the messes that I constantly get into? What are the mistakes that I constantly make? What are the ways that I constantly find myself in pain and suffering? Relationship patterns. The second part of doing the work, and this comes as you build more self-awareness, right? You can't really learn your stories if you don't have self-awareness. It's really just that straightforward and simple. What is learning your stories? Learning your stories is also healing the past, right? Because when you work on your wounds, you realize the stories that are attached to that. All those wounds develop stories that I'm not understood, that they don't get me. I don't fit in anywhere I go. I have nowhere to belong. Those wounds created those stories. And so even though I've done so much healing work on the past, the minute I'm in a fragile state, those stories come rushing back. That happens for me, that happens for you, that happens with everyone. And that is why doing the work is not just about going to a retreat and pulling out one wound and then it's over. If only it were that simple. Doing that healing wound work only helps us realize just how deep a story runs. That's what that does. And you're like, damn, that runs deep. I had no idea that that has been paining me for the last 40 years of my life. And then once you discover that, you are now able to see your life through that lens, that wounded lens of, I see how I've been projecting that story everywhere for the last 40 years of my life. And I see how it can change when I stop looking at my life through that lens. And that is what doing the work is. And that is what stopping projection and transference is. Because you are actively working to detangle yourself from the past so you can stop projecting the past onto the present.